Today on Week in Review, a special ceremony was held at the Nishka Museum. A residential school survivor spoke about Truth and Reconciliation Day, and another judicial review was filed against the PRGT pipeline. Hello, I'm Cael Maslin, and thanks for joining us here on Week in Review, where we cover all the news here in the Northwest from this past week. The Nishka Nation held a special ceremony at the Nishka Museum, raising a totem pole that had been away from its homeland for nearly 80 years. The pole was first removed in the 1920s and later displayed at the Museum of Anthropology. Now, after decades, it's returned to its rightful place in the heart of Nishka territory. CFTK's Helen Asante shares some highlights.
I will be saying a prayer before the sacred ceremony happens. Harakatkum Samagat. Luda Atun Lahagi. Oix Amin. Omin. Nuganam Samasa. Law. Intum Skog.
So today, you are witnessing some great history, and we are very happy to see every one of you here today, because it is your job to be a witness to the work that is being carried out by Samagat La and his will.
On behalf of the University of British Columbia, we are honored that Wilkla and the Nisga'a Nation and its people have invited the university to this momentous and important occasion of bringing the Wilkla San back home. When the University of British Columbia Board of Governors established the President's Committee on Totem Poles in 1947, they set a mandate to acquire poles for the university as a way to ensure that some poles remained in British Columbia and to preserve First Nations heritage for the people of BC. Their intentions were rooted in colonialism, and we now understand that the potlatch ban that was in place at the time created terrible conditions for Indigenous peoples. Today is an important opportunity to start a new chapter in the journey of the Wilkla San. The repatriation of this pole is a living example of how the university is working to advance our Indigenous strategic plan and to implement the human rights of Indigenous peoples as articulated in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples.
As Canada reflected on Truth and Reconciliation Day, one residential school survivor is sharing what the day means for him. CFTK-TV's Helen Asante shares more.
A time of reflection, healing, and action across the country, Canada paused to honor the residential schools and families and communities forever impacted. Here in Terrace, a senior survivor shares his story.
I was taken away from my mother and my father and mother and my grandmother back in 1968 to go to Indian day school. I spoke very little bit of English at the time, and they forced me into Indian day school to start speaking English. And as the time went by, they changed my name from Danae Tum Donald Patrick to Little Guy in English, because they said Danae Tum was a savage name. So they gave me the name Kenneth. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago the federal government gave us permission to get our traditional name back, so I continued on and took my old name back from the government.
Danae Tum Patrick endured the trauma of residential school and years of addiction. At 69, he's now in college, working to rebuild his life.
All my life, while I never had no education, I never thought I would get my education. But if it wasn't for a college, Coast Mountain College that took me in and gave me tutors and all the help I need for counseling, and they're still continuing on to helping me here right in Coast Mountain College. And it doesn't matter how old you are or what you're on, drugs, alcohol, whatsoever. Education is a very important tool to heal your journey in any way, trauma or whatever trauma you got. Education and art is the number one tool that a person needs. Once you get that, nobody can ever take it away from you, which thing I never had all my life. But now I am getting my education and I feel pretty good for myself.
He says truth and reconciliation must begin with honesty and real action to support survivors and families.
To me, truth and reconciliation today, they're just talking about it. And people are getting grants, monies, and forgetting about the people that they're there for. They think of their pockets too much. They don't think of their people at all. If it was me, I would spend every penny that I got from a grant money with the people that are on the streets, homelessness, and get them shelter. Because there's no way in the world that any native in this world today and age should be homelessness of any kind. Go down to where we live and look at how we live and see how we are living today and civilization. And then if you want truth and reconciliation, come and live with us for a week or two and see exactly what we're going through instead of just staying back and talking about it.
His message, healing is possible, but truth must never be forgotten. Cael Maslin, CFTK-TV News, Terrace.
A new judicial review has been filed against the PRGT pipeline. This comes just after another case against the pipeline was dismissed back in August. Cael Maslin reports further.
The first case was against the BC Energy Regulator for approving the start of construction in August 2024 without a cumulative effects assessment. That judicial review was argued at the BC Supreme Court in March and was dismissed. Eco-justice lawyer Matt Hulse says his clients are not appealing that decision. This new judicial review has also been filed in the BC Supreme Court. It challenges a decision by the Minister of Environment that the PRGT project was substantially started by the November 25, 2024 deadline in the project's Environmental Assessment Certificate, although the decision was delegated to and made by the Chief Executive Assessment Officer, Alex McLennan. This case does not involve the BC Energy Regulator. And this is not exactly the same group of clients as the first case. Both cases involved the Skeena Watershed Conservation Coalition and the Kispiox Valley Community Centre Association. However, this new case also involves a local resident, Kathy Larson, but not the Kispiox Band. Their application asks the court to find the head of the Environmental Assessment Office was unreasonable in determining that construction on the PRGT project was substantially started before the November 25, 2024 deadline, when its environmental assessment certificate would have expired. The coalition argues the limited construction that occurred only 3 months before the deadline is not a substantial start of the massive pipeline project. They say that after nearly 10 years of inactivity, the pipeline company only partially cleared trees from about 5% of the pipeline route and built some limited supporting infrastructure. The pipeline, which has faced strong opposition from some frontline communities, will cut across northern BC to the west coast, transporting fracked gas for export overseas as liquefied natural gas. The coalition say they are concerned that the PRGT pipeline will have significant impacts on communities and the environment in the region.
You know, these projects, they have to meet climate emissions, or at least that was how people were coerced in thinking that these might be good. Oh, it's going to clean up the climate. LNG or natural gas is the cleanest burning fossil fuel. It is, but the extraction, liquefaction, piping process makes it dirtier or as dirty as coal. So it's not actually going to clean climate. It's going to make it worse. It's like pouring gas on the climate fire and saying we're doing climate action.
Environment Minister Tamara Davidson said she was confident in the decision made by the CEAO at the time of the determination.
Up next, a study looking into flaring and its emissions was publicly released. Welcome back. The mayor of Prince Rupert recently traveled to Southeast Alaska advocating for reopening the Alaska Marine Highway, which he says has been an ongoing concern since the Prince Rupert terminal closed in 2019. CFTK's Cael Maslin has more.
As you travel on the Alaska Marine Highway, The route encompasses 3,500 miles of coastline.
Mayor Pond says that resolving the security and capacity issues that need to be addressed to restore ferry service between Prince Rupert and Ketchikan, Alaska, would be a strategic move. He said it will strengthen cross-border collaboration and unlock new economic opportunities for both regions. The Prince Rupert terminal has been closed for 6 years now due to aging and unusable infrastructure and a stalemate over which country and whose steel and labor would be used to revitalize the terminal. Community members have lamented the loss of the service, including Ocean Rutherford, rep for Area A on the North Coast Regional District Board, whose informative YouTube video explains the issue and value of the service in detail.
Every year growing up, these 3 lanes would be full in the summertime of travelers on their annual pilgrimage north to Alaska. We haven't had this for about 5 years now through COVID and through other complications. Today, I'd like to go over what Canada is in control of and how we can advocate for the return of the Alaska State Ferry to Prince Rupert.
Rutherford also recently got MP for Skeena-Balclay Valley Ellis Ross interested in the project.
If we want the economy going, we've got to look at all our opportunities, including the ones that we've ignored for so long, like the Alaska Ferry Terminal out of Prince Rupert. If we don't develop something like that, then the United States will build a ferry terminal up in Hyder, Alaska. There'll be no need for any ferries to stop in Prince Rupert that are traveling, that usually use the Alaska Ferry Terminal in Prince Rupert. I mean, it's a lot of these issues that have been ignored that I think that British Columbians deserve, especially northern British Columbians deserve to be heard. And we got so much to offer.
Jaylene Matthews, CFTK-TV News.
We now look to a recent study that illustrates the high flaring emissions produced by LNG facility startups. A first-of-its-kind, peer-reviewed study focusing on the practice of flaring at liquefied natural gas export facilities has been publicly released. The study that began around a year and a half ago took a decade's worth of data between 2012 to 2022 from a total of 48 LNG facilities around the world, and what the researchers discovered was concerning.
The main finding was that the emissions from the startup operations, which are rarely talked about, those emissions are 3 times more intense than the emissions during regular operations. And so it's sort of an unreported hazard to health that is happening in British Columbia at this very moment.
Flaring emits air pollutants that have been said to be harmful to humans even in short periods. The study also stated that most environmental assessments overlook the startup phase and, as a result, might underestimate potential health impacts on local populations. And while it wasn't included in the study because it hadn't been finished being built at the time, the researchers have heard from Kitimat residents about their concerns with their own recently opened LNG facility, although the researchers do have some new information on the emissions produced by that particular facility.
I've seen videos and I've heard from many residents complaining about the smoke coming over the city and also the noise that the flare was making. We can see online all the flaring notifications that LNG Canada is sending, and we've seen there's regularly, we counted about 20 notifications over the past year for flaring that would occur over multiple days or even weeks, and with flares that go from like 60 meter to 80, 90, or even 120 we've seen recently.
What we know from the emissions profile of the Kitimat plant, that there are exposures to the community, and we now know that the startup operations, which Kitimat is still undergoing, are some of the most high-emitting parts of the history of the facility.
The main reason this study was called first of its kind is because it used data from a satellite that could take pictures of flares and then provide an estimate of the volume of gas that was flared. But work on the study is not yet finished, as there is set to be a second part to it.
In the study, that just got published, we developed probabilistic models to say there's like 10 or 20% chances that a facility will burn that much gas, will flare that much gas over its startup phase. And we want to use those results and apply them to wood fiber LNG that is under construction in Squamish, just to see if we would get different results from their environmental impact assessment, which did not include startup flaring.
It's been estimated that the second part of the study will be released in the fall of next year. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Cael Maslin. The Skeena Wild Conservation Trust is in BC Supreme Court to challenge a decision made by the Environmental Assessment Office saying that the proposed Cael Sulphur's Mitchell mine is substantially started. Skeena Wild said the decision was made through an environmental assessment process that's a decade out of date, and that the proposed mine is a threat to both the Nass and Unuk rivers, which are said to act as lifelines for Pacific salmon and Yukon. Canada's largest environmental law charity, EcoJustice, is representing Skeena Wild in this case, and they've put forth the argument that the project can't be substantially started since the Environmental Assessment Office considered irrelevant information in their assessment and that the mining company has completed minimal physical work. This case could end up affecting how substantial start decisions for similar projects in the future are made. After the break, a BC mining project has reached a major milestone. Welcome back. The Prince Rupert Port Authority has announced that they have donated $108,000 through their Community Investment Fund to the new Visiting Specialist Clinic at the Prince Rupert Regional Hospital. And thanks to those funds, the clinic is now going to be able to give North Coast residents more access to specialized health care. The clinic has hired 20 specialists that are offering services such as cardiology, neurology, pediatrics, as well as ears, nose, and throat. A mining project located in northwestern BC has reached the major milestone of beginning their active operations. Blue Lagoon Resources recently confirmed that they are starting up their active mining operations at their Dome Mountain Gold project located near Smithers after getting their first delivery of blasting material. Blue Lagoon's president and CEO, Rana Vig, expressed how he and his company are feeling now that they've gotten to this point in the project's life cycle.
We're excited to work with the local community and the First Nations, as we develop and increase, production here and make this a very viable and socially responsible project. We're very excited about that. I think you're going to see this is going to be one of the best projects, in my opinion, in this province over the coming years.
And in another interview prior to production starting up, Vig also explained that the mine's production would not be conducted in definitively set work periods.
The mine site is certainly accessible year-round, and so we have no limitations there, and it's our expectation to be working predominantly 365. There may be a short break, perhaps for Christmas or New Year's, or depending on staff and the contractor miners what they want to do. But certainly, we expect to be running pretty much year-round.
One of the final processes that needed to be completed before the start of production was the installation of a required water treatment plant. Vig then went on to describe how it works and why it's needed.
We built our water treatment plant well over the required capacity. It's in fact, it's well over 6 times the requirement that we need currently to treat the water. When there is blasting and just in the natural process of mining, there's elements that enter into the water. And so the water treatment system is a state-of-the-art system designed by one of the best water specialists in the country. It's designed to make sure that the water that comes that we're discharging is clean.
Blue Lagoon is expected to release a quarterly report on how the mine's production is going before the end of this year. For CFTK-TV News, I'm Cael Maslin. Still to come, New Ianch was recently home to a basketball tournament. Welcome back. All roads led to the Nisga'a Nations as they recently hosted a major basketball tournament in New Ianch that welcomed teams from across Canada, including powerhouse universities and their very own Nisga'a Select All-Stars. CFTK's Helen Asante reports.
It's a Canada West tournament. We kind of decided that we really wanted to just bring some attention to the Nisga'a Nation and the beauty there and the hospitality there. And last year went over so well with the universities that this year we've worked with. It's more than just basketball. I mean, I love basketball, and I know the Nisga'a Nation loves basketball, but there's just more to it. And I guess in the 8 years that I've been running basketball camps there, I've just learned so much about their culture, and I've been welcomed to, I could have never expected to receive that kind of kindness and love in what we do. It is completely for free. The Nisga'a people do it for the North in a hope that people will come up, that people will take the time to come up and catch games. Thursday night, the games are at 5 and 7 in both Nuayanch and in Gingoks or Kincolith. And then on Friday, so Friday's games are at 5 and 7 in Nuayanch and Greenville. And then Saturday's games are at 2 and 4, followed by a banquet and dinner and awards presentation in Gilastamix, Nuayanch. Yeah. Canada West has jumped on board, and now we're up to 7 teams attending this year, and excited. I mean, yeah, teams from Winnipeg. University of Winnipeg is bringing a women's team. Regina men's team. MacEwan University out of Edmonton is bringing a men's team. University of Calgary is bringing a women's team. University of Northern British Columbia and Prince George is bringing both women's and men's. University of Fraser Valley is bringing a women's team.
Among the lineups, one team to watch is the Nisga'a Select All-Stars, taking the court against some of the best talent in the country. It's more than basketball. It's about bringing people together through sports and culture, a weekend of celebration, competition, and pride for the Nisga'a Nation. CFTK-TV, Helena Sante.
A hereditary chief for the Gitxsan Nation is challenging the province's decision to approve a liquefied natural gas pipeline project in northern BC. The BC government announced in June that the Prince Rupert Gas Transmission Pipeline project had been substantially started, meaning the environmental assessment certificate issued in 2014 approving its construction remains valid. Gitxsan Hereditary Chief Charles Wright has filed a petition in BC Supreme Court claiming that the decision was unreasonable because it failed to include consultation about the project's impacts on Aboriginal rights and title. The petition is one of two, with a separate coalition of community groups filing a legal challenge claiming the project wasn't substantially started before its original environmental assessment certificate was set to expire. In a now permanent inconvenience to the people of Prince Rupert, Walmart has announced that they'll be permanently closing down their Prince Rupert location. They say that while the store was initially closed down out of concern for the safety of associates and customers, the prolonged closure led to a larger review of the store location and operations. Walmart stated that they recognize the impact this closure will have on customers and associates. They say their immediate priority is to support our impacted associates through this transition. That wraps up this week's edition of Week in Review. Make sure to tune in to our regular newscast on Monday at 4:30, 9, 9:30, and 11 o'clock here on CFTK-TV. Thanks for tuning in, and have a good weekend.